The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good afternoon, good evening, everybody. Thank you so much for joining me today for this free webinar that we are conducting. It is about the airlines and the transportation sector. So first of all, I would like to welcome you all to the webinar, and we will wait for a couple of minutes in case if some people are still in the process of joining, they can also join us before we get started. But before anything else, I would like to get some confirmation that the audio and video is okay. If you guys can hear me properly and see my screen, please, I would really appreciate that. Okay, hi Zhang, hello Derek, Theo, Zulfi, Kareem. All right, that's wonderful. AJ, thank you so much everybody for the confirmation, and once again, welcome to this webinar. It's a free webinar, presented by Elliott Wave Forecast. That's wonderful. Thank you, Abdullahi. Hello, Ethan. That's great. Thanks a lot for the confirmation. All right, so just to give you guys a heads up of what we would be talking about. All right, let's just wait for a couple of minutes first, so we can give everybody a chance to join in, and then we get started. Let's just it's 7 past right now, so let's start at 10 past. So let's give it 3 more minutes, so that if some people are still in the process of joining, they're running late, so they can also join us before we get started here. And I mean, of course, we're going to record the webinar as well. So if you had to step away in the middle, if something urgent came up or for whatever reason you couldn't finish attending all of it, of course, you can watch the recording as well later on. Even though I would recommend that if you can, you stay till the end, because that way you'll get a chance to interact with me and ask questions also if you have any, or if you do not understand anything. But definitely it will be recorded as well, and you guys can definitely watch out the recording also, which should be available early next week. Okay, that's wonderful. Thank you so much, Zhang. I'm just going to wait for 1 more minute and then we'll get started. It's going to be 10 past, and then we can get going here. So I do see a lot of members here also. That's good. And of course, I do see a lot of new names as well. So that's nice. Of course, members already know our view, but still it's gonna, I mean, they can always like learn something new. Even though the instrument that we will be looking at today, these are not the instruments that we cover regularly in the service. So of course they can get to see the latest charts and everything and ask me any questions that they might have. So let's start now. Okay, it's almost 10 past. So I would like to welcome everybody to this webinar, which is called Future of Airlines and Transportation Sector, which is presented by myself. My name is Daud Bhatti, and of course I'm representing Elliott Wave Forecast.com. Okay, so I don't have too many slides prepared. I have lots of charts for you guys, and I will be doing lots of explanations as well. So basically, mainly I will be doing the explanations through the charts and not really through the slides. So I do just have a couple of slides just to give you guys an idea of what we will be covering. But before we go there, who we are, of course, I see a lot of members here, as I mentioned earlier, and so they already know the background. But for those who are joining us for the first time, We are a forecasting company, as you can see here. We're called Elliott Wave Forecast. We cover 78 different world markets, including Forex, commodities, indices, stocks, ETFs, and some cryptocurrencies as well. And we provide around the clock coverage. We do regular intraday updates of 4-hour updates daily and weekly over the weekend. We do lots of videos. We have a 24-hour chat room for group one, and chat rooms for other groups as well, like for stocks and ETFs, which are open during the market opening hours, where clients can ask questions. They can interact with our moderators. If they don't understand anything about the analysis or the wave count, they can come and ask a question there, and we will respond. Or if something changes between the scheduled updates, of course, they can ask questions over there. We do daily technical video, weekend video. We do interactive live analysis sessions like the one we are conducting now, where you can see my screen and hear me, and I can read whatever you're typing. So this way you can type your questions, we read them, we answer. So we do a live analysis session for each group. We have 78 instruments, so we divide them in 3 groups. Okay, so let me try and show you the number, all the instruments that we cover. Just very quickly, don't want to take too long on it. So this is the list of instruments that we cover here, 78 in total, as you can see. So we have Forex instruments, commodities, indexes, stocks, ETFs, and cryptocurrencies. And this is what I was referring to. Like, we divide them in 3 different groups. So this is group one. It has lots of Forex pairs. Your most of your majors are here. Your major indices, S&P, Dow, Nikkei, FTSE, DAX, EBEX, and some, your main commodities, gold, silver, copper, and oil. This is group two. We have a lot of Forex pairs here, some other, couple of popular indices here, like NASDAQ futures, E-mini S&P. We got Russell, Euro stocks, Hang Seng, ASX, and Nifty. So we got like a wide variety here, like indices from different parts of the world. Some Forex pairs, some crosses, commodities, and then of course we got 3 cryptocurrencies here. And this is group three, in which we cover stocks and ETFs. So this is what I was referring to. That obviously stocks and ETFs, the chat room for group three is open only during the market opening hours. And as I mentioned in the live analysis session, also we go over all the instruments in each group. We explain, the main idea that we are following in the market, the logic behind the forecast, the right side, which are the clearest instruments to trade, which ones are not that clear, and so on. And of course, clients or the trials, they can ask questions and we answer. So it's a good way to learn because obviously, number one, you get to understand how we look at the market, and also you can ask us, lots of questions as well. I'm sorry, I do not understand what you mean by, are you talking airline or no? Okay. Oh, yes, sorry, I see what you mean. Of course, I will be talking about the airlines, Gigi Chang. So it's one of the existing members getting a bit impatient about me getting to the topic. I was just giving an introduction of who we are. And so just bear with me for a couple of minutes, and we will be going straight to the topic after this. And we will be talking about lots of airlines as well, of course, and some other charts. So you guys are going to get to see plenty of charts today. So just be a little bit more patient, and I will be going straight to the charts after this, and I will be taking all your questions as well. All right, so yeah, that's well said, Derek. And yes, of course, you can watch this later AM. And if I do not answer your questions right away, I'm still seeing them. That means that it's not an urgent one, but I will be answering all your questions. So don't worry about it. But you can type your questions. I will be getting to them. And just don't think I'm ignoring you, but I will get to your questions and I will take all of them. All right. So you get to learn a lot when you attend the live sessions, because we explain the market, and you get to understand, when the structure is developing or the wave counts change, you can see how we're adjusting them. We give you our explanation, the logic behind the forecast. So that's a very good learning opportunity, of course. And then, as I said, we have chat room, and then we provide trade setups as well for educational purposes, which are based on our right side blue box systems. And I will be showing you lots of blue boxes today as well. And then you guys will understand what I mean. All right. So that's who we are. We are a team of, we've been in the business for over or more than 15 years, and we are a team of about 13, 14 people all together. Quite a few of us are analysts, and then of course we have some support team, some IT guys, and all that. So that's just a brief introduction about us. And at the end, of course, if you guys like the webinar, for those who are not already a member, we do offer like a free 14-day trial as well. So you guys, should be able to register and try us out for free for 14 days. There's no commitment. Of course, if you didn't like it, you can cancel and you will not be charged. Okay, guys. So yes, we are in different countries, Derek. Yes, our main, we are mainly based in Miami, Florida, US. That's where the company is registered. That's where our head office is. And then, of course, we have a presence, in the UK, of course, in Canada, and then we have like employees. Some of them are in Asia because we provide round-the-clock coverage, and of course, you will agree with me that with the 24-hour market, I mean, it's for a few days, yes, you can stay up all night and work the Asian shift, but in the long run, it's very difficult, to be able to just stay up all night, and then uh, just work to the best of your ability as well. So that's the reason why we do have, the team spread all over the world. All right. Okay, so again, another general question. I will take this one, but obviously it is about who we are. Uh, you know, uh, well, basically, why we didn't do that because it was our company policy that we are mainly a forecasting company, as I explained already as well. So we are not a signals provider anyway. So our main purpose is that we provide the forecasts and we encourage the clients to use our forecasts and combine them with their own system to trade. Now we do realize that not every client has their own trading system already. Some of them could be new and some of them have just joined, and some they're just looking for a good system to work with. So we do present our own system as well, which is basically, we call it the right side system. We identify the right side and then we trade the retracements, or buy the retracements, so sell the bounces in 3, 7, 11 swings in our blue boxes in the direction of the right side. So whatever trading setups we present for educational purposes, they are based on those blue boxes and right side technique that I'm talking about. Okay. And the reason why we didn't do it because, as I said, it was a company policy, and that we didn't present any setups during that time, and that's the reason you see that a gap there in the graph. So we have just explained that, but we do now provide it again. So we have evolved over time, with basically to meet the demands of our clients. So we have been evolving as well, like market evolves. All right. So yes, it is a decent operation. Thank you, Derek. And yes, Gigi Chang, I'm sorry to have wasted 20 minutes of your time, my friend, but it's effectively 8 because we started at 10 past. But yes, we will be going now to the main topic. All right. But just give me one moment. Okay, hi Ray. I will be showing you the grand super cycle in some of the indices, but the main topic today is about the future of the airlines and the transportation sector and where we see it headed, and what we are seeing in these sectors. So we will not necessarily be talking about the indices, but I might be looking at, in fact, I would be looking at the grand super cycle in some of the indices just to do an analysis and the comparison of the grand super cycle in the indices with the ones that we have in the airline sector. All right. So if you guys recall, I mentioned earlier about the blue boxes. So basically, just wanted to let you know what the blue boxes are. So they are basically high frequency areas where we believe that the high frequency trading machines they react in those areas, and they're based in a relationship of sequences, cycles, and are calculated using Fibonacci extensions. All right. And they are the areas where majority of the times both buyers and sellers they agree in the direction of the next move for 3 swings at least. All right. And that's why we sometimes refer to them as the no enemy areas as well. Okay, hi Sonia. I know I don't have Ford in the list of instruments that we would be covering, but if we have time, I can try and take a quick look at that towards the end and give you a quick opinion. Like I said, there are literally, perhaps too many. I don't know the exact number of the stocks listed in the transportation sector. So, of course, the idea is not to cover each and every one of them, but it is to explain where we think the sector as a whole should be going based on some of the key structures that we are looking at. So otherwise, of course, it's not going to be possible to cover each and every single stock listed in the transportation sector. But if we have time towards the end, please remind me again, and if you can have the symbol ready, I will try and take a look at that. And again, I just want to mention that it's not going to be like a freelance session where and again, I don't want to be rude. I just want to say so that we are able to finish the session in time and you guys get a good idea of what we are looking at about in the transportation sector, where we think it's headed in the future, and what are the key structures we are looking at, which are giving us that main bias. Okay, because otherwise, if I started getting requests and if I have to look at every single one of them, I wouldn't want to be like be biased and look at some and not look at the rest. But this is the first one, so I will look at this. But as I said, I wouldn't be able to look at a lot of individual stocks from the transportation sector. All right, because otherwise we won't be able to finish. Okay, guys, so let's get started here. Gigi Chang is getting too restless, so let's get straight to the point here. Okay, and here we are. So this is the next slide. And what we will cover today is, as I mentioned earlier when Ray asked me, the grand super cycles in the indices. Okay, so basically, just show you some of them and what they are calling, and about the future. Grand super cycles in the transportation sector. We will be looking at the Dow Transportation Index and also some of the airline stocks, and perhaps one or two cruise stocks as well, just to give you an overall view of where we are in the grand super cycle. Okay, then we will be looking at the cycles from the highs in the weekly charts. It's different for each instrument. We'll be looking at some of them, of course, but some of them peak in 2018, some in 2020, some in 2019. So we'll be looking at the cycles there, like what they look like, the decline that we have seen, and then the reaction that we have seen from the lows so far, and most likely path for the future going forward. And we will explain that why, of course, we do understand, we're not naive, that of course some companies sometimes they do fail, they go under. And but the purpose of this webinar is not to talk about whether which company is going to go under and which one is not. We hope none of them go under, but of course it's this is real life, and it's a reality that sometimes companies do sometimes fail. So yes, we are aware of that some companies can fail, and some they can go under. But today we'll try to show you why we think that the sector as a whole still should remain supported. And even though, like, maybe one or two or some companies can fail and go under, the entire sector will not, at least not based on what we are seeing. All right. So first of all, let's take a look now. I will open eSignal and we will start by looking at, just give me one moment. So I'm just adjusting my screens. Okay. All right, so this is the right one. You guys can see these signals here in the background. Okay, so first of all, let's take a look at the grand super cycles in the indices. One moment. All right, so let's take a look here. The grand super cycles here in the likes of S&P got, this is Bank of America Corporation. Obviously, this is not an index, but the reason why I picked this is because this is a stock from another sector, one of the sectors that we are not looking at today. So I've just picked this one. Of course, this is not an index, but I just wanted to show you the cycles in this one as well. Of course, we'll be looking at the cycles here in the S&P. This is the Hang Seng, and this is the All Ordinaries Index from Australia. And again, you could ask that why, you would pick like probably not so popular indices like Hang Seng and ASX, which is from Australia, all right, as compared to, let's say, why not, S&P, Nasdaq, etc. All right. So of course we have S&P in the list, but the thing is we believe in the concept of one market, and it doesn't matter whether it's the index in Australia or if it's in Hong Kong or if it's in India, or obviously if it's the in the US, which is obviously the main hub, right? But it doesn't really matter if you have an incomplete sequence. That means that unless of course the market is going to do a flat or something like that, I'm talking about the midterm structures, right? And that would mean that the entire market, all over, should remain supported. Okay. So why we do not think that, for example, a lot of people have been talking about that this should be, we should have finished a grand super cycle here in the S&P, and now we can go back to whatever level, 1000, 1500, and etc., etc. All right. So, and we can correct this entire cycle from the lows here. The reason why we believe that is not the case is because if you take a look here at the likes of Hang Seng, okay, so this is the zero line, all right. So basically this is the grand super cycle degree here, from zero line to this three. This is one full cycle, because this correction that we got after reaching this peak back in 2007, it was the it retraced more than 61.8% of this entire rally from the zero line. So that would mean that that was a correction of the entire grand super cycle there. But since then, the Hang Seng index, it has already broken above the 2007 peak, as you guys can see here. We got a new high in 2018. This is 2007. This is 2008. And then we got a new high above the 2007 peak in 2018. All right. So what it does is that this makes it an incomplete bullish sequence. Okay. This structure doesn't look impulsive. I'm sure you guys will agree that it looks like, right, that there are two ways. Yeah. So there is, from here you can count 1, 2, 3 swings, and then you got a correction to, which corrected this entire cycle, and you have 5, 6, and 7. So this entire move is in 7 swings, which you can label as big 3 swings as well. It is a corrective sequence. And then from here you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 swings, which makes the swing number 5 in black. But the fact that we have broken this peak, that means we have an incomplete bullish sequence against the lows here of 2008, which is equivalent to the 2009 low in the S&P 500. So we do think that the Hang Seng could have, most likely entered the sixth swing already, or can make a marginal new low. That's not the point of discussion. Okay, but uh, since it has an incomplete bullish sequence, that means that this pullback that we got, okay, especially in the US indices, we started earlier this year in February. Okay, what I mean with an incomplete sequence, AJ, is that the market runs in the sequences of either 3, 7, and 11, or 5, 9, 13, right? So 3, 7, and 11 is the corrective sequence of the market, and 5, 9, 13, 17, and so on is the impulsive sequence, right? So since you would agree that this move is not impulsive, this is corrective, right? So because there is obviously, you have clearly 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7 swings here, right? So which we have labeled as big 3 swings, and then you have a connector and a new high. That means if you just count the big swings in the black, just to keep the count smaller, you have 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 swings. So this means, since this is a corrective sequence, so 5 swings should be incomplete, because this is not an impulsive sequence. So where can a corrective sequence complete? It can complete at 3, it can complete at 7, it can complete at 11, and so on. So currently we have 5 big swings. So that means that this corrective sequence is incomplete to the upside, And as far as this low is holding, we should still be expecting more upside towards this shaded blue box area over here, which is basically nothing more than the extensions here, as I mentioned earlier. Okay, so it is basically, you measure the move from the zero line to this peak, you project it higher here from this black 4 low. Okay, so that's how you get it. All right, so that is your area to complete 7 swing sequence. So the sequence is incomplete. That means Hang Seng is telling us that this correction that we got, it should have only corrected this 2008 cycle, and not the entire cycle from this 1987 low or the zero line, right? And it should still have more upside to go before we end the cycle from the grand super, the all-time low. All right, that's what the Hang Seng is telling us. Then this is the ASX index. Okay, all right. Now, since we have already, you can see that this one is also one grand super cycle here from the zero line in ASX, right? And we have a connector followed by a new high. Okay, so clearly you cannot say that this is your already your A, B, and C or 1, 2, and 3 completed, because this is just a fractional new high. It only managed to reach the 0.618 extension, right, of this A and B. All right, I can put this B here. And of course, you still have divergence in momentum, because the corrective sequence should end without divergence. So that would mean that this is, it is also still calling for more upside here. So even though the first cycle here is impulsive, and you do have 5 swings here, but that does not mean it's a complete sequence, because you haven't even reached the equality target yet, which comes at 99.34. It's up there. All right. So where did we get this pullback from, which started earlier this year, and we got this decline, and which stopped at the 61.8% retracement of the move up from this 2009 low. So ASX is also supporting the idea that since it has already broken above this peak, but it hasn't reached the extreme yet, that means that this is also an incomplete sequence supporting the extension higher. And of course, since we broke this high, that would mean that this is only a super cyclic correction from 2009 low, which is the low in the S&P as well, if you guys recall. And only a flat from here could mean that, okay, we are going to correct the grand super cycle degree, but clearly there is no reason to go with that, especially when the decline is corrective here, and you don't label the flat against the obvious, because when you do that, majority of the time you're going to get it wrong. Plus, there are a number of stocks which have already broken to new all-time highs, and the Nasdaq index also has made a new all-time high. You guys must be aware of that. The rules of, yeah, Hanks. I'm sorry, I don't understand what you mean by the rules of a nest not supporting the Hang Seng, because we're not labeling the Hang Seng as an impulse anyway. So either it is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, it's going to become a diagonal, right? Or it is going to be a corrective sequence with the W, X, and A and B, and then this is the C. So this is a corrective sequence anyway. We're not labeling the nest, but I'm not really sure what you mean by the rules of nest not supported. Of course, we're not labeling 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2 from here, if that's what you're talking about. But this is a corrective sequence from what I can see. I mean, yes, you can tweak the count, label it whichever way you like, but overall the sequence is corrective. Okay, I mean, yes, you can make it 1, 2, 3. You can make it a diagonal, but overall it is a corrective sequence, but it is incomplete and bullish to the upside. Like I said, you can label it the way you like, but overall the sequence is incomplete. Okay, so this ASX is also supporting the same idea. Then we have the S&P. Now, if you take a look here, this is the all-time low. Yes, of course. This is the one question that I got. Does any super cycle degree have invalidation points at some level while the sequence gets completed? Uh, Let me just post it here so everybody can see. So, right now, for example, Hang Seng, right? Uh, So we finished this grand super cycle. We made a correction. We broke to new highs. So breaking this high would mean that any subsequent correction that we get should only be a super cycle degree correction. In other words, it should only correct this super cycle here. The invalidation point for that in absolute terms would be this low here. So of course, we use a distribution system for our analysis, which runs ahead of price, and it's based on a lot of things. Okay, but that runs ahead of price, and that can tell us, for example, if this pivot gives up in distribution, then there would be risk that the Hang Seng, for example, can do a flat from here, because obviously sequence is incomplete, right? That means since it didn't reach the target, you do still have divergence as well. Okay, so and if the pivot gave up, that would mean it could do a flat from here, just to give you an idea. So this is the invalidation level for this super sequence here. That would mean that as far as this low doesn't break, in price, of course, but uh, the way we look at it, for us, even in the distribution, it should hold. And as far as it is holding, you need to keep pushing higher for the 7 swing towards this area. Now, for example, Hang Seng can go here and do this. It still has room to do that. The reason why I'm mentioning this is because we will be talking about this for when we get to the airlines, and I will explain that why we do not see a lot more downside in the airline sector and the transportation sector, even when some of them have room to do the double correction to the downside like this. Some stocks are negating that idea. Okay, so Hang Seng can do this. If it did this, it is currently bouncing from this equal legs here. So this reaction, it has come perfectly from this blue box. Members obviously had it already on the charts when this decline was happening, so they knew where this decline could end. Of course, we don't present the exact level because it's a big area. It's a weekly correction. It's like, this is for the 10-year long cycle which ended, but that was the shaded area which told us that the three-wave correction from here should be ending in this area, and from there it is bouncing. As you can see, we are up over 3,000 points already from that low within the blue box, right? So, but the invalidation obviously was here. And now let's say Hang Seng goes here and then does something like this. We still got to stick with the view of the swing number 6, and that we are still correcting this cycle as far as the low here does not break or the pivot here does not give up in our distribution system. Do you understand that, AJ? So that's going to be your invalidation. Of course, you got 3 swings already, larger 3. Now it can bounce and do 7. Remember, that the corrections run in 3, 7, or 11 swings. So after 3, 7 can always happen. Not that we're calling it, but just as a hypothetical scenario, okay, if that happens, then yes, you still got to stick with the view that this is swing number 6 from the 0 line and still correcting this cycle because this flow is still intact. All right. Okay, now getting to the S&P chart, we can see that the S&P, obviously, we saw that this peak here, this is the 2000 peak. In the Hang Seng, this peak was in 2007, and in the ASX, the peak was in 2007. Okay, and of course, that 2007 peak in the S&P is over here. All right, so this was the grand super cycle peak in Hang Seng, in ASX, and even in Bank of America as well. It saw the peak slightly before the others, the Hang Seng and ASX, in 2006. Okay, now obviously you know that famous flat which took place in the S&P from this 2000 peak to the 2009 low, right? So what happened was just so you guys understand that why this turned into a flat correction here, because clearly when this dip happened, it was pretty obvious that this cycle was over. Now when the new high happened, there was only 2 ways. Either market was going to continue to the next inflection area, the next target, logical target from the 0 line, right, which at that time was at 23.27, unless it did a flat and then went higher. Remember, a few minutes ago I mentioned that breaking this high in ASX, would mean that we should continue higher against this low unless we do a flat from here. You remember that? I mentioned that a few minutes ago, and it even says over here that the only way that we do not continue higher against this low is that if you're doing a flat from here, right? Basically, that is what S&P did back in 2007 when it made a fractional new high above the 2000 peak, and then it dropped and turned into a flat. However, that new high was pretty clear sign that this is a correct correction here, okay, and we should be expecting more upside once this completed. All right, of course, I know that there were 2 possibilities that your cycle could have ended here. This could be A, and it could be a B and a C, right? But the reason, okay, so when the S&P did a cycle here, it pulled back and broke the high. This high I'm talking about, the equal legs was above the previous high. So or I think either when we broke this, yeah, I believe when we broke this high or probably this one, we started calling the S&P completed. Of course, until then there was a chance that the cycle ended here and this was A, B, and C. But obviously, like I said, either it was this peak or this peak, and I can't recall from the top of my head, that we started calling the correction completed as a flat from here and started calling higher because the next extension was above the highs. So this is what S&P did. Now, why? Just to so you guys understand why this S&P cycle turned into a flat here after this marginal new high and didn't continue higher is if you take a look at Hang Seng, this is that pullback. It finished in 2002 in S&P, this pullback, which is basically this dip here in Hang Seng, 2002, 2003 lows here, right? But what happened is that when S&P made a fractional new high, it was obviously well short of its equal legs at 2234 of these two cycles, from all-time low to the 2000 peak, and then projected from 2002 low. So why it couldn't continue higher is that because Hang Seng hit the ceiling here at that time when S&P had just made a marginal new high above the 2000 peak, and it was showing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7 swings into an extreme area, and then it struggled to continue higher. All right, it was a corrective sequence. The cycle ended, Hang Seng dropped, and S&P was forced to do a flat correction here because Hang Seng hit the ceiling here, completed 7 swings. All right, so you can see that even though one is in Hong Kong, other one is in US, but how they basically have an impact on each other, and which is what I was explaining earlier, that we believe in the concept of one market. And I'm giving you all these examples because this obviously when we conclude, then you guys will be able to understand that why we are saying what we are saying and why we think that the transportation sector has a relatively brighter future. All right, so same thing here happened with the ASX didn't really provide us with any clues because this wasn't any corrective sequence here, even though if you take a look at it from the zero line, okay, this one also was at equal legs, but this can be labeled as an impulse as well. However, Hang Seng was pretty clear that it hit the ceiling here, and then it pulled back, corrected the grand super cycle. S&P dropped in a flat to finish correcting the grand super cycle, and then it rallied. Now, why we think, getting to this point of the S&P, that why we think that S&P hasn't finished the grand super cycle, again, it's very obvious because now, even though there are two reasons. Number one, yes, S&P already reached the extreme from here. It has even gone past the 1.618 extension. So when we believe that when the third leg goes past the 1.618 extension of the first and second legs, then it is no longer a corrective ABC move. Then the third swing becomes wave 3. So this should be then, that's why they become 1, 2, 3, as it says here, and then it will, this is 4, and it will do a wave 5, or the 4 still can do a triangle. All right, because it can consume some time. This one took a lot of time here. So this, for example, 4 still can do this, right? But the why we think that they should still see more upside is because you still have an incomplete bullish sequence in the Hang Seng, with the new high here in the ASX, all right, supporting further upside. Or other scenario is that this turns into a bullish nest, 1, 2, 1, 2, and against everybody's expectation, we can accelerate higher, not in wave 5, but in wave 3 of 3. But that's, that's this, the second scenario. Obviously, at this stage, you do not know which one is going to be, except that you know that it should still see more upside because the incomplete bullish sequences in the likes of ASX and Hang Seng. And now this is the BAC, okay. So this one here, obviously, is a grand super cycle. This is a 2009 low. Remember, the low is here at 2.44. And then this move here looks to be in 5 waves, all right, which is a super cycle, by the way. And even though BSE still has room to do this, you can go here, do this. Even S&P can do that. Hang Seng can do it. ASX, yeah, it can still do this, all right. But, and even this one, but there are a number of airline stocks that we'll be looking at which do not really provide you with that kind of a room to do the double correction lower, okay. So, and obviously if this one is going to do the double correction from here, that means that it is going to go under, right? Because if the low is 2.60 here, your next extreme is going to be like, at minus 17. So it's like somebody's going to pay you 17 bucks to buy one share of BSC. Obviously that's not going to happen. It's not a futures contract like we saw happening in oil, right? that obviously the delivery was due, the contract was expiring, so it's spiked into negative territory, which is ridiculous, if you ask me, but is what we saw happening even for a short period of time. But that's not going to happen with stocks, right? Nobody's going to pay you $17 to buy a share of BSE. Okay, so that would mean that if obviously calling a break of this law is not going to happen, unless of course, yes, a company can go bankrupt, but still nobody's going to pay you $17 to hold a share of BSE, right? So and of course we know that some companies do, right, fail, but like I said, that's not what we are forecasting, because we don't look at fundamentals, we only look at the technicals. All right, so it doesn't make sense to be calling a double correction from here to a break of this low, which is again supporting the idea that this low should hold for extension higher, and hence why, of course, we're still expecting more upside against the 2009 low in the S&P. All right. So that was an over. And here, keep in mind that the American airline that we will be looking at when we're going to do the comparison. Then we'll get back to this chart. Okay. But now I would like to show you the basically grand super cycles in the airlines, the transportation index, and some other instruments from the transportation sector, and then we'll do a quick comparison of them with the BSE and the S&P, and then of course we will take a look at the a bit more detail of those structures that we will be looking at. Okay, just give me a moment. Sorry, 1 second. Yes, we are bullish the indices SD. I mean, uh, if you will see that once we have finished the webinar, I'm sure that you will be able to agree with me on what we are saying. Uh, and I'm not saying that they will never go back to the 2009 levels, because once we do finish the grand super cycle, I cannot comment on how deep the correction would be, but we don't see them going to 2009 lows from current levels, right? And I will show you that there is a lot of instruments have room to do the double correction from the peak here, but as I just explained to you that unless you expect that, not in a bad way, but just saying, unless anybody would expect that they will get paid $17 to hold a share of BSE, or if they are absolutely confident that this is going to go under, going to go bankrupt, all right, it doesn't make sense to be calling another cycle similar to this one here, even though it can do this. Yes, this one can do this, right? Okay, let's say you don't want to call a break of 2009 low. This one certainly can do this. All right, that would mean that one can say that if that one can do that, S&P can go here, right? However, I'm going to show you one chart now. This is the American Airlines, all right? And again, here we're not betting on which company is going to go under and which one is not. But if it's not going to go under, it does not have room to do another big cycle similar to the one from the February 2020 peak, okay, which is somewhere over here. But even if you say, I mean, this one can make a marginal new low. I won't rule that out, because if it does, I can tweak the count. I can put the one here, make it an A, a B, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So yes, this one can get closer to 2009 lows, but again, obviously, even though it hasn't broken this peak yet, but it's the same scenario as the BSC. This is the American Airlines, right? So obviously, it does not make sense calling a double correction and a break of this low as you go in the negative territory. Minus 2.76 is the 100% extension. And plus, this move here looks impulsive. Either ended here or here in case it makes a marginal new low and becomes a flat from here, 3, 3, and 5, right? So that's, I mean, in order to say that S&P needs to go to back to this 2009 low here, all right, uh, you are saying that, or at least do another cycle similar to this one, you would be expecting that American Airlines should do another cycle similar to this one at least, because if it's just another marginal low, that's okay. But in order for the S&P to do this, if S&P is going to make this big drop, no, it cannot. That's what I'm trying to explain, because it is what it is about common sense. because analysis and forecasting is as much about common sense as it is about looking at different techniques, all right? So that would mean that you will be looking at a move like this. So yes, I know it can go bankrupt, all right? That, I mean, I don't deny that. I'm not naive. I know some companies do. But at this stage, look at how it is reacting from here. This, we know what this area is. It is the extreme area from the 2018 high. And that is exactly where it is bouncing from. And the thing is that we saw a major drop in the transportation sector, all right, because of the worldwide lockdowns and everything, if you want to go into the fundamentals, all right, and the lack of demand, which still hasn't obviously gone back to the previous levels yet, but at least the overall the world is opening up, the traveling is starting again, even though not to the same levels as before. So, and I mean, I have, if you, I mean, just to talk about that, I know a lot of countries, at least in the Europe, they have open lockdowns, and it's been a few weeks already, some over a month, and the traveling has resumed to some extent. All right, even the air travel and the number of new cases. If you talk about that, the virus, it's like it is still constantly declining. All right. So again, I'm not basically a scientist, and I'm not an expert, but from what I can see is that things can only get better from here, is from what I can see. Of course, I don't say that a second peak cannot come, because like I said, I'm no expert. Don't quote me on that. But from what we have seen so far, and whatever damage was going to be created, but at least I don't think that the world economy, it can basically sustain just staying in a lockdown forever, all right, unless you just want to go back to the stone age, right? So the traveling should resume, and things should only get better, even if you talk about the fundamental perspective, all right, for the transportation sector, all right. So now about your question of whether such a condition like it can't go negative, mess up your wave counts. As I said, we never say anything absolute, of course, and I've already said this, that some companies can go negative. All right. So yes, this one. No, this is not the basis of our analysis. Again, maybe you just joined. I don't know, and you know, I have already mentioned that AAL is just one example that I'm quoting. Okay, Hang Seng has reached an equal legs from this 2018 peak. Okay, so can it do the double correction here? Of course it can, but will it do it? We don't have any reason to call when we have already seen a big equal legs being reached. So, and even if it makes a new low here, it can still be part of the same cycle as an AB 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so that's not the only reason why we are calling the indices higher. It is not just one instrument. Okay, I can show you more. Okay, so unless you're expecting the entire airline sector to go like under or go bust, for example, this is the, what do you call it, the Southwest Airlines, even though yes, it can do the double correction, I mean go here and do the double, but obviously American Airlines doesn't have room to do that. This is Delta Airlines, and the Grand Super Cycle, it can go here, and yes, still can do the double correction if the bounce becomes too big. Okay, this is the one of the cruise companies here, Carnival, peaked in 2018 like the Hang Seng, already reached the equal legs, so it can go, it does not have room to go here and do the double correction, all right, because unless it just goes under, all right. This is JetBlue. Okay, so it does not have room to do the double correction to the downside, or it reached a low 6.6, which was a perfect blue box hit. Once again, it is retesting that now. Okay, so unless you are confident that the entire, like all the airlines and the cruise companies and everything will go bust, then of course be my guest, you can call the double correction lower in the S&P. But I believe that yes, even when some companies can, the entire sector is not going to go bust, all right. So if you take a look here, the Dow Transportation Index, okay, this one, it is again bouncing perfectly from this blue box here, corrected the 2009 super cycle. And yes, it has plenty of room to do the double correction and do this. However, I do not think that, the instruments like the JetBlue, American Airlines, or Carnival, they have room to do the double correction to the downside. All right. So plus, like I said, you have an S&P which has gone past the 1.618 extension. It did three wave back. So we need to either call extension, uh, or it can be triangle. When a retracement has passed 76.4%, okay, we do not call the double correction, okay, because yes, it can still do it like it did the flat, but most of the times when a retracement passes 76.4%, okay, then a double correction is very less likely to happen, because the reason why we don't call that is it can only give you a marginal new low, all right. So since it's went past 76.4% retracement, some stocks already made new all-time highs. Nasdaq made a new all-time high. So it can, it can be a triangle, or it is complete here. So we won't be calling the double correction even when it has room to do it. But why we won't be calling it? Because we have incomplete bullish sequence in Hang Seng, we have incomplete bullish sequence in the ASX, okay, and we already got three wave back in ASX, three wave back in the Hang Seng to the blue box, so we do not have any reason to call the double correction lower. Of course, it can happen, which is why we only trade the extreme areas. So our members have been buying the 1 hour pullbacks in this rally. Now when the cycle ended, of course, we look at different instruments to look at when the floor will be reached and when they can try the longs again. But like I said, this is the overall concept. Of course, if you want to learn more about it, we discuss these in the live sessions pretty much on a daily basis. Not the exact same thing, but things related to this. But the webinar today is about the airlines and the transportation sector, and so I would like to concentrate on that rather than just keep talking about the indices. All right. So uh, and as I said, that our basis for calling S&P higher is not just because AAL cannot break this low. Yeah, I know it can go bankrupt, but unless you expect that the entire sector is going to go bankrupt, and the entire transportation sector is going to go bankrupt. Transportation will drop below zero here, the Dow Transportation Index. But that's okay. That means you have an extremely negative view. I don't think that's going to happen. Very less likely. We believe that overall, when you look at it this way, okay, look at the overall bullish sequences here that you have in the worldwide different indices. Hang Seng, ASX, S&P going past 1.618 extension, meaning it should extend still, even when in the worst case it can do this, that we won't be calling. That means more upside should come. But in order for the S&P to do the double correction from here, most of these airline companies and the cruise companies, they need to go bust. Okay, so if you want to bet on that, that's okay. But you know, I again, like I said, I don't know what else to say. But that's our analysis. Everybody has the right to agree or disagree with it. But that's our view. Like I said, of course, in the webinar, I'm not like trying to basically convince everyone or force anyone to agree with our view, but we will be presenting our view, and then of course you guys can basically sleep over it and see whether you like it, don't like it, you agree, disagree. Of course, everybody can have their own opinion, but this is our opinion, all right. So as I said that we have incomplete bullish sequences, so we do still expect more upside to come in the world indices. If somebody doesn't agree with that, that's okay. It's a free world, but that's our view. And again, like I said, we do not see any reason to call the double correction from the highs, for example, here in the S&P, even though it can happen. If it does, it is still a buy over here, because it has gone past 1.618 extension. Hang Seng is bullish, ASX is bullish, and so on. All right, guys. So I'm getting some requests here to look at some other instruments. I did mention at the beginning that we will not be able to look at every single stock in the transportation sector. We do not have the counts for some of those instruments that you guys are asking about. Like the Boeing, or I don't know, IAG, And we're not looking at FTSE because FTSE is not a transportation index as far as I'm aware. And of course, it's not part of today's webinar. It is about the transportation sector. All right. So before we get too late and drift from the topic, uh, okay. So again, that's a general question. AJ, please save it towards the end. Please ask me towards the end, and I will try my best to look at that. Okay. All right. You're welcome, my friend. Yes, Theo, I will be looking at the move up from the lows. Okay. But just give me a moment. Now let me look at the grand super cycle here. This is the American Airlines. Okay, grand super cycle ended here. It finished back in 2008. This is a super cycle degree from 2008 to 2018. All right, and now we have seen a big three-wave pullback. Where did it end? Exactly in this area here, which is basically calculated using the Fibonacci extensions. Okay, and it's a no enemy area, and you can see how we have already seen a good reaction up from 8.3 to 22.77. That's like an nearly 250 70 80% rise there. All right, now it looks like this cycle ended. We will get back to this in a moment. And again, as I explained earlier, that this is okay. So as I mentioned earlier, that this grand super cycle correction has finished. This is a super cycle, looks like 5 waves, and now it should hold this low and extend higher. This should be the low unless it's going to do a flat from here. Okay, but it should be supported because there I see 5 waves here. Worst case can be a flat from here, and wave one ended here, but it's supporting the idea that we should hold this low and extend higher. Okay, this is another grand super cycle. We got 3 wave back in the Carnival cruises, and obviously it stopped here just below the 1.236 extension of AB, and again does not have room to do the double correction lower. Okay, this is Delta Airlines. All right, it looks like it did a flat here from this peak. Now if somebody says that your wave one ended here and this is just your wave A, it is possible because in this one at least alone it can do this. Yes, it has room to do the double correction. Okay, however, you do not have room in Carnival to go here and do this because otherwise you're going to break the zero line. You do not have room to do the double correction from this 2018 peak or even from this peak here. Okay, do another cycle similar to this one unless you expect that it will break the low and go under. All right, so when you look at the JetBlue also doesn't have room to do that. I think I'm missing a time frame here in JetBlue. All right, so this is the grand super cycle here in JetBlue, ended in 2003. Then we got a correction here in 2009, and then this is the 2015 peak. And you can see this. I mean, if the market wasn't technical, then you wouldn't see all these like airline stocks, the cruise stocks, bouncing precisely from the blue box areas. You can see this not just one. This is JetBlue. Okay, this is Carnival bouncing from equal legs. You have American Airlines bouncing from this equal legs here. Transportation index bouncing from the equal legs, the blue box area. All right, so that's why we do believe that the market is technical. And again, I mean, of course, there are fundamental factors which could come into play, but they can mostly affect the individual stocks. However, the sector as a whole, or overall, whenever the impact of that individual event has passed, they will follow the overall cycles that the market is following. All right, so these are the grand super cycles. Okay, and if we do a quick comparison here of basically in the transportation sector. Okay, now here you can see uh, this is the all-time low in the S&P when the grand super cycle ended here. If you go to the American Airlines, right, sorry about this, start from here. Okay, all right, so when we broke this high here, American, was obviously at the highs, but we know that, and the Hang Seng was at the peak, and so on. All right. But now when S&P reaches, look at this area now, this blue box area. So when S&P reached this blue box, which is the extreme from this low here, all right, this rally from all-time low to 2000 cycle extended high from 2009. American Airlines reached 100% within the grand super cycle. Okay. Now what I mean is that the S&P did reach the extreme here, but the American has not. Okay. Because if you take a look here, there's a typo there, because grand super cycle, if you start from here, the zero line, we haven't reached extreme yet, right? That was at 64.53. Okay, that would mean that S&P reached the extreme, but Hang Seng did not, ASX did not, and American also is missing the extreme. That's another reason why this correction should only be a correction of the 2008 cycle, which is equivalent to this 2009 low here in the S&P, and there's no point calling the double from here, which is why, of course, remember this low, even though we did get an here back in 2008, here we did get majority of the decline here. That was due to the financial sector crisis, and American, after finding a low in 2008, it just tested the lows. Okay, so I don't know who it was mentioning earlier. I think it was Ray, I guess. Let me see who it was. SD. Okay, that if you are saying that if something like that can happen again, if the American can hold the lows here like it did back here, okay, and other sectors can make another drop, which can cause the S&P to do the double correction. So as I said, that this happened due to the financial crisis when this one made this drop. This one held the low and S&P did this. Okay, so that is not something that you would be betting on. Okay, I mean, again, it is not impossible. All right, if something like that happens again, it does a double correction, it is a buy again in this area. Okay, so it is definitely it should see more upside because you have incomplete sequences in the likes of Hang Seng and ASX. Okay, so again, like I said, it has room to do the double correction lower, but now you can, if you make a point that okay, SD. So I hope this answers your earlier question. All right, that if airlines, let's say, are going to hold the low like they did here, and S&P can do the double, so in that case, you're betting that on another big sector to crash, right? So you could say that, all right, okay, the financial sector can crash, for example, like it did back in 2009, or by crash, I mean make you see a big decline, and then it can do the double correction. So this is where BSE comes into play that you were looking at earlier, all right? So I mean, when you look at it here, so yes, this one can still do the double correction because it has plenty of room. But any correction, my point is that any correction, even if the BSE does the double, like if what you're proposing that airlines don't drop, and let's say S&P still can do the double, that would mean that you're kind of saying that it can happen because of another big sector taking a big hit. So again, that's not the kind of thing that would anticipate, because BSE is also telling you that it should hold 2009 low for extension higher unless it's going to go under, right? And it already did a correction here, reached the 50 back, so there's no point calling the double correction until it doesn't break the low. So it reached the 50 back, bounced perfectly. So until this low doesn't break, there's no point calling the double correction in the BSE, which is like from the financial sector, right? If it does that, then yes, it can do the double correction here. In that case, S&P might still do the double correction here, and then it should be a buy again in this area, but still a buy because it has number one, it should still be a wave 4 because it has gone past 1.618 extension, or a nest 1212, and of course we have bullish sequence in the likes of Hang Seng and ASX. All right, so so I hope that that part is clear as well. Just one moment. Okay. All right. So now, of course, this is the transportation index. Like I said, 2000 cycle. This is a flat, the one that you saw in the S&P, another super cycle. Okay, which has been corrected. We did 3 wave back already. Still can do 7, but of course, there is no reason to call 7 in this because, like I said, then a lot of other stocks within the transportation sector, they're gonna go bust. All right, which again we do know that some of them can, but the entire sector should not. Okay, so that's why it does not make sense to call the double correction lower in this one. We did the blog here when the price was here in this blue box, and we have seen a nice rally since then. Okay, so that's basically the grand super cycles in the transportation sector. We have the transportation index. This is the one you have in the JetBlue. All right, you have one in American Airlines, CCL, and of course this is the Delta, and Southwest is pretty much the same. If you take a look here to the monthly chart, so this is a grand super cycle. Okay, this one here, because this cycle should have ended like the rest of them. Okay, I do not think that it is just correcting this cycle here, because it can be if it is a nest like you have, for example, in the American. Like, if this is a super cycle correction, then it has to be 1 2 1 2. If that's the case, then this one also can be a 1 2 and 1 2. Okay, 1 2. But obviously, based on the extension, it does look like it is a clear 5-wave move. You have more than 161 extension here in the third wave. 1 2 3 4 5 clear 5 waves here, here, and then another 5 waves from here to here. So this is a clear 5 waves move, and it did 3 waves back, and it is bouncing from another blue box area, just like the rest of them. Okay, so those are the grand super cycles, and you know what they mean in terms of, yes, exactly, an ABC 3-wave pullback could be WXY, depending. Each one has a slightly different structure. If you look at the JetBlue, this one looks more like a WXY because you have 3 waves from here. But yes, it is a corrective decline, 3 ABC or WXY into the extreme areas, and now you're seeing the reactions. Okay, now we will take a look at, as I mentioned earlier, if you go here, we will be taking a look at the cycles from the highs. Okay, so let's see what they look like. So this is, for example, uh, all right, so again, I don't know what you mean by a reverse split. Does that mean that the number of shares in circulation will increase or decrease? Decrease. All right, okay, so that means the price per share will increase, correct? Because the market capitalization will stay the same if there's a reverse split. And let's say somebody had 50 shares, if there's a 50 to 1 reverse split, and if somebody had 50 shares at, let's say, 1190, and if they do a reverse split of, let's say, 5 to 1, just as an example, and the price goes to 60, and then somebody who had 5 shares, now they will have 1 share, so overall value will stay the same. How we would label that on charts, I mean, honestly, that's it is still going to show as a rally on the charts. I don't know what else to say. As I said, and I don't know because I have not seen. I mean, I know some companies do that, but whether it's going to happen here in the airlines or not, I can't say anything about that. And as I've said before, that we only are technicians. So we do the technical analysis. We don't go into the fundamentals. So whatever the chart is going to show, we're going to label that. I mean, I do understand that if there's a 5-to-1 reverse split, and then the price can be here around 50-60 area, and it might look like, this view played out when it could be because of the reverse split. So I cannot give you like, any answer on that. We still, obviously, the answer is that we will still label whatever the chart is showing. But I do understand that in that case, there would be no real increase there. But like I said, I cannot anticipate when somebody's going to do a reverse split or not. I can only analyze the data which is in front of me, if you know what I mean, right? So I can't be, like sitting here worrying about when the reverse split will happen and how I'm going to label that. I need to be analyzing the data that we have in front of you. So that's exactly what we would be doing. This is all the data that we have since the inception, of each instrument, right? So you mean that in reverse plate, then the entire data is adjusted to the reverse plate? Is that what you're saying, Theo? All right. Okay. So that would mean that your peak here will change to, for example, if it's a 5-to-1 reverse plate, this one will change to 155 something, and then the entire structure will get adjusted according to that. Okay. So perfect then. So that's your answer there, Theo. Sorry. Thank you very much, Theo. That's your answer there, AJ. That Theo is saying. Like I said, we're technicians. So this is. Thank you for sharing that. That if that happens, then you have to basically adjust, do the reverse adjustment on the previous structure as well, and then your structure is still going to look exactly the same. All right. So that's why there's no need to worry about what the count will look like. It should then look exactly the same. It's just that the levels will be different. All right, guys. So I hope that part is clear. Okay. Now let's take a look at the weekly peaks here. All right. And then this is, first of all, if you take a look at, start with American Airlines. All right, guys. Okay. So first of all, let's start with the American Airlines here. Okay, this chart, not the correct one. 1 second. All right, here we go. Okay, Angela, you can you please elaborate what you mean by replay? Do you mean whether the session will be recorded, or if I will be going through everything again, like a summary? Yes, the session is being recorded, and the recording will be made available once the session has ended. It will be available early next week, probably on Monday. All right, so okay, so you're most welcome, Angela. So here we are taking a look at, just one moment, please. Okay, so this is the American Airlines. Okay, this is the peak back in 2018. We have 5 waves decline here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. A corrective bounce, shallow connector, and then you have another 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 swings, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Okay, so perfect reaction coming off the equal legs. Probably this chart didn't get saved here. Okay, and now we have seen a reaction which got pretty close to the 50% retracement of the decline from here. So at least this cycle should have ended in the American Airlines. Okay, now if we and you can see how nicely it is. Just bear with me. That is the next point here. If you take a look at this, the reaction of the lows, that is the next point that we will be covering. So just bear with me, please. So we'll go step by step. Okay, and this one, it is bouncing perfectly from the blue box. We have presented this chart in a blog. We did present it a few months back when the price was here. So this has been a very good reaction. Surprise here is that this is your one here, and this is 1, 2, 3, 4, and you make a marginal new low to complete 5 swings from here and then turn higher again. Okay, but that is just gonna be the alternate view in case you get a new low, because you're not going to look for it to break to below zero or this low. Even if it did make a new low, in that case it can become a flat from here. All right, or you could still label this to be your 4 here, so you can tweak the count like that, and then this can still be 1, 2, 3, 4. You can get a new low within the same blue box area and then look for a turn higher after that. Okay, now when we take a look here at the southwest, okay, you can see here, if I go to the weekly chart, which is better, you can see the peak there. Okay, so this one also nice reaction, even though it went a bit deep in the blue box, but looking pretty good so far. And again, we had 5 swings from this peak back in 2017. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. A bounce here, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Okay, the bounce went to the 50% retracement of the decline from the peak. And then this, how nicely it reached the blue box extreme area. This one also we presented the blog in the blog section when the price was here, and we said it should soon be looking for a reaction higher, and we have seen a good reaction from 22.57 to 42, nearly doubling in price before pulling back. All right, and now we believe the cycle ended, and as far as this low is holding, it should continue higher. If it makes a new low, surprise is that this is your 3, 4, and a new low will be where 5 of C and then turn higher again. All right, okay, so yes, I will. Yes, sure. I'm going to show you guys the overlay in a moment of all these different airlines, and along with the S&P, Hang Seng, and BSE. Just give me a moment to finish taking a look at these structures from the highs. Okay, and this is the Royal Caribbean cruise. This one was a flat. Okay, obviously, in a flat, the extensions don't apply the same way that they would in a normal 3-wave correction. This was an extended C wave. But the way you catch the low in this is that when the 5 waves finish, that's when you know that the cycle ended, and you've seen a good reaction higher in this one as well. Okay, so, and this is the Delta Airlines. If you go to the weekly chart, you'll be able to see here. Sorry, 1 second. That this one also is a flat here. Okay, and from this previous peak, either here, A, B, and then you have 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Surprise, if it makes a marginal new low, this is your 3, this is your 4, and then it can make a marginal new low and higher again. Okay, so, and if we take a look at the JetBlue chart, that's here, and this one also you can see it nicely reacting from the blue box, 3, 3, and 3, and you can see that how it is reacting after reaching the blue box area. Okay, now let me try and show you here the overlay, as I was getting some questions earlier about what if the airlines don't drop and S&P drops, right? So like I said, that can only happen when the decline is based purely on just one sector, like we saw back in 2009. And at least I do not have any sort of information about that. And you cannot do the forecasting based on individual events, that there was a financial crisis back in 2009. So let me try and call the double correction in the S&P from here and forecast another financial crisis, so that the airlines do not drop and the S&P can still drop because of some other sector dropping. You understand what I mean? So you do not do the forecasting on the basis of individual events, or because an individual event happened in the past. So that's not how forecasting works. So forecasting is done keeping in mind the correlation, all right, the structure, the extensions, the sequences, the cycles, etc., and not based on individual events. All right, so if we do an overlay here, This is the, let me just remove this. Let's go to the weekly chart, or let's just leave it here. I'm gonna have to actually do it on top of this. All right, then we have AAL. No, we won't be looking at the banking index. As I mentioned earlier as well, that we'll only be looking at the transportation sector and the airlines and some other stock from the transportation sector. It's, as I mentioned earlier, it won't be a freelance session and you won't be looking at anything and everything. We'll just be sticking to the agenda. And otherwise, of course, there are like thousands of instruments to look at and we'll never be able to finish. And you guys will be here all night as well. All right, so here you can see that even though these are different stocks, different indices, all right, and how it is all the same. If I hide the descriptions here, all these charts, they will look very similar to you. Of course, not everybody has rallied in the same magnitude when the rally took place, or not everyone has dropped in the same magnitude when the drop happened, and the Elliott Wave structure is not exactly the same, but some have dropped more than the others. But overall, you can see that cycles wise, it is all the same. They got all formed a low here. All right. There was a low here in 2015. There was some went sideways, some made a pullback here. Then there was another rally, and then everybody dropped here again in 2020, and now everybody's bouncing again. Okay, so that's why I said that you cannot do the forecasting on the basis of an individual event which happened in the past. All right, that that was like a one-off event, uh, okay, in which like the decline happened purely or major on like for the most part on the basis of the financial sector, which in which case the airlines didn't drop. And you know why AAL didn't drop here when this happened, and you got this decline in the S&P, this part here from 2008 to 2009, simply because it did not have enough room to do that. So the rest of the market was dropping. The AAL didn't do it because it simply did not have enough room to break this low and then do another decline similar to that. Plus, of course, the decline was purely financial sector based. But that was a one-off event, so you cannot, when you're forecasting, you cannot forecast anticipating that another one-off event will happen, and then airlines can hold the low, S&P can do the double, BSE can do the double, and so on. All right. But those events, they do happen. Okay, then of course you need to adjust from time to time, but they are not a common occurrence. They can happen from sometimes. All right, but then when that happens, you adjust rather than you forecast on the basis of those one-off events. If something happened once in the past, you cannot be calling the double correction lower in the BSE or S&P because of that. Because the thing is, overall, it's the same market. So what you're saying is that if the airlines do not, or if anybody says the airlines do not break the low, and S&P does the double, BSE does the double, is that means simply you're calling for a crash in the financial sector? And like I said, forecasting cannot be done like that. That is speculation, and forecasting is different. It is based on a methodology and not based on speculation. Even though we are speculating, but it is still done on the basis of a methodology, a technique, and after doing the technical analysis, and not just a speculation that a one-off event will happen, which will make airlines hold the lows, and everything else can do the double correction lower. All right. So just to show you guys that this is all the same thing, all one market here. And that's the reason why it would not make sense to be calling the double correction lower. And since AAL does not have room to call the double correction lower here, we would be pushing higher in the other instruments as well, and other indices also. All right. So now when we let's take a look here at the reaction of the lows so far. Okay. Let's go here and take a look at, right, we have, okay, so somebody was saying something earlier about whether we have 5 waves in this and 5 waves in that from the lows. And if I have not taken any questions, it's because they were not related to what we are discussing. For example, there was a request to look at the FTSE, or whether we'll be looking at Boeing or some other instruments. So I have not taken those questions because they are not part of this webinar. And that's the reason why I haven't answered those. I did mention it earlier as well. Okay, so the reaction of the lows here, it does look to be, just let me close these charts. Okay, so keep in mind that the first leg of a new cycle is often quite tricky and choppy. Okay, so it's not gonna be the clearest structure. For example, uh, if we take a look here at the American, right? Okay, so this is the low, right? 514 is the low here, and this looks like a 5-wave move. All right, it is definitely 5 swings. Okay, so you have 1, 2, 1, 2, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 3, then you have 4, 5. So this is one way of labeling it. Okay, if you drop to another in a further lower time frame, right? So you can even make this your wave 1. So we can have 1 here, 2 here, 3, 4, and 5. So it's like I said, the first leg is often going to be quite choppy, and then you can make it 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, and then you have 4, and then another 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Okay, so this does look like a 5-wave move. Okay, even though in the high time frames at least you do not have divergence. But bear in mind that the first leg of a new cycle is often quite tricky and does not look like a very clean impulse, and that's the reason, because it's a fight between the buyers and sellers, and that's the reason why initially when the first leg of a new trend starts, people are thinking that this is still a corrective reaction, a correction, and then they are still trying to push prices to new lows or new highs, in this case new lows. All right, but doesn't necessarily have to happen. So yes, I mean, if you keep downgrading here, uh, there is no at least, we'll check the slow time frame. Okay, so only in the 1 minute chart you have divergence, otherwise you do not. Okay, but nonetheless you do have it. But if you take a look here at the extension, based on the extensions, this does look like a 5-wave move, because otherwise this is a very extended C wave which went to the 261.8 extension. Okay, very rare that that will happen unless it's a flat, and this is not a flat. So that's what the reason why this does look like a 5-wave move. Okay, and now, so of course this cycle ended from 514. So if I reload the page, all right, so we should be correcting this cycle now. Like I said, the reaction is questionable, but can be considered a 5-wave move. Of course, it can be a flat from here as well. And as I mentioned earlier, if it makes a marginal new low, it's not going to be the end of the world. It could still be treated as 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, another low in the box, and then higher again. All right. So for now, we can see that the reaction already reached the 50 back, but ideally can do something like this. Test the lows and then turn higher again. Okay, but of course good buying has happened here from the blue box, and we're still expecting more upside. Even if the low breaks, we'll still be pushing for more upside here because of the 5 waves here and the reasons that we explained, that of course very less likely that it will do the double correction to the downside. Okay, now if we take a look here at the southwest, all right, so again this cycle clearly ended. There should not be any doubt about that. And of course this cycle from the lows also ended, you can see, and it reached the 50 back from this peak and from the B wave high as well. So it's a good reaction, another indication that this cycle should have ended. If we now take a look at the internals of the move up from the lows, all right, so this one does provide you with divergence. Okay, and it has to be something like 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, provided wave 3 of 3 is not the shortest. Okay, if it is, then you got to go another way. All right, this is your 1, 2, then you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 4, 5. Okay, but there is divergence here, which that's why ideally this should be your wave 3 of 3, but like I said, the first leg is not always the clearest. This rally looks good, and now as far as this high is in place, you can do another leg lower, can follow a path like this, and as far as this low is in place, we'll be pushing for extension higher. Keep in mind that we are already in the blue box. Worst case, if it makes another low, is that this is your 3, this is your 4, and it can do something like this. So that is the worst case scenario, but of course it is still in the blue box. Not that we'll be calling for that, but that is if it makes a new low. I do not think it's going to be another cycle similar to from this 2019 peak, All right, so that's what we have here in the southwest. If you take a look here at the reaction of the lows in the Delta Airlines. Okay, this one looks quite questionable as a 5. Okay, looks more like 3, but as I said, the first leg is often not the clearest. This cycle has ended, and it makes sense that we should be pushing higher against this low. Now, if it is possible that this can be an ABC, bear in mind, if you guys recall, and go to this chart here. Okay, sorry, this one. So this is, to be honest, this is quite big to be the wave 4, but it didn't reach the 50 back. So if we did get another low here, because this was quite time consuming, remember, this one took a lot of time. So I don't be surprised that it makes a marginal new low. That's not going to change anything. But in case you do see another low, then this will be your count. So it's not going to be, another like huge decline coming. But yes, another marginal low still can take place. In that case, instead of doing 3 swings back, it can do 5 swings back here, make a new low, and then turn higher again. Okay, because this was quite big in time, so this can still be your wave 4, and that will not change the end result. Then it can penetrate into the blue box one more time and then rally, because this is a new high, remember. So, and then this can be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in case it makes a new low. Okay, so as far as the blue box entries in these airlines are concerned, they have already reacted from their blue box areas. The concept of extreme trading is that, if you want to enter in the blue box, for example, this one here in the American, this one in the Southwest, all right, you enter when the blue box is being reached, not after the blue box has been reached. You've seen the reaction from there, and then you are coming for a retracement, because after 3 swings, 7 always can happen. Now, for example, you cannot trade against this low, because if it makes a new low here, it can still be considered part of wave C. And with American, I mean, if you are trading it, if it does another test of the blue box, it's okay to trade it against this low. And again, everybody can form their own strategy. Like I said, I'm not providing trading signals. That's not the purpose for today's webinar. But the blue box entry, it was here. When it hit the blue box, then you buy, define your risk. In this case, it's this low or the 0 line, whatever, and then you forget about it, because whether you don't know where exactly it's going to end in the blue box. Yes, you can drop to smaller time frame to get an idea of where exactly the wave structure will end, right? But you can never be sure about the exact level where the correction is going to end. So I think this is a good proposition here. Of course, JetBlue also looks good. So the structure wise, they all look quite similar to me. Okay, sorry about this. And as far as the blue box entries are concerned, they have already hit the blue boxes. This one already reached the 50 back, and that's the reason why I won't recommend, which technically would mean that, if it now makes a new low, it's not gonna be, it can be, because this was quite big in time, like I showed you in Delta. Even if it did make a new low, it can still be your wave 4 and 5. But since it reached the 50 back here from the B high, there is would be a risk that if it does make a new low, it becomes a new cycle rather than wave 5 lower. Okay, so that's why generally when it comes to the blue boxes, the way we like to trade is we define the right side, and then when the pullback starts or the bounce higher begins, we once we can work out the area to define the blue box, and we'll put the blue box there. All right, and once the blue box is hit, then we enter and trade against the other extreme of the blue box, and we do not wait for a reaction from the blue box and then try to buy the retracement, because that simply means that you're not trading the extreme, rather you're trying to trade the retracement. Okay, so as far as the setup is concerned, I mean personally, to be honest, I think the cheaper the stock, the better it is. So I think definitely AAL was a good option here. Of course, in this pullback again, I mean, it is still a good buy against this low. Obviously, the risk is slightly higher than it was before. And with the others, AAL looks better to me because obviously it's quite cheap, all right, and it still has a lot more potential to the upside. And with the delta, I don't think that this is a good setup in particular because this does not have any clear extreme. It's a flat structure. Okay, JetBlue was a good one here, and I personally think again that even if JetBlue also makes another low, it can still be an ABC. I can change it to the A5 swings here. Sorry, I don't know how it got moved. So JetBlue is also another good option in case it makes a new low. It can become A, B, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So there is still a chance that another low can happen. When you look at, when I showed you the Delta Airlines here, okay, even Southwest can do that, JetBlue can do that. So another low cannot be ruled out. The reaction so far looks good. Okay, like I said, the move can be counted as 5 in some, but not in everyone. So another low cannot be ruled out, but if it happened, I would say that's this one, for example, also reached the 50 back. But since this was quite big in time and price as well, so if it made a new low, I most likely would still be part of the same cycle from here. A, B, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Because like I said, it doesn't make sense to call another cycle similar to this one, right? Because if that happened, then for example, you will be calling for the American Airlines to go negative and so on, and the JetBlue also. For if you call a similar cycle to this one from here, you're expecting it to go negative with the equal legs coming at 5.09, and that's the reason why I believe that if it makes a new low, I think it is still part of the same cycle from here. A, B, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 C wave diagonal. So it's a good opportunity. I like these ones here. I think JetBlue is good, American Airlines is good, and of course, this one, um, it is, it was a good opportunity here. Now that it has room to do the triple three and does not break the low, so that's the reason why if it breaks the low, there is a risk it can become like, a triple three structure from here, like a W, some sort of an irregular in the middle, a Y, X, X, and Z, all right? So this one will become tricky. So that's why I think American and the JetBlue, they do look to be better options. Delta obviously is a flat, and that does not provide you with a clear extreme to trade because it is a flat structure. Do keep that in mind. All right, guys. So that's okay. To be honest, AJ, somebody did bring it up that AJ is saying that it's an off-topic question, and an individual like Warren Buffett, who is known to make very good investment decisions, he actually cut his losses in the airline stocks, and the prices were near the lows. I don't know the exact level because obviously I don't follow him, but I know somebody mentioned that the price was near the lows at that time, somewhere in this territory, if I'm not mistaken. And obviously, I was told that he was long from higher levels and he cut the losses. And again, I mean, I cannot say that why he's not using this technique. Obviously, he probably trades purely on the basis of fundamentals, and that's the reason why, obviously, he decided to take a loss. So, I mean, that's I really cannot comment on that because I don't know whether he takes technicals into account or not. But definitely, if he did, I believe that he would have, like you said, added to the longs rather than cutting the losses on the existing longs. So I cannot really comment on that because obviously I don't know what they were thinking at that time and why they will not look at a strategy like this. I'm sure it can help because the like more robust and the more up to date fund managers, if you look at them, Yes. You cannot rule out that this another low, as I mentioned, or a sideways price action near the lows, remember, as I've been talking about here, because keep in mind that when we found the low back in 2008, right, the American Airlines actually traded sideways for about 3 years before it accelerated higher. So it did a swing higher, tested the lows, another high, another pullback. It was obviously nesting, but if you take a look at it, it didn't really go anywhere for 3 years, with the low of 136 and a high of 1258. So it traded in that range, all right, at least in this range between 1111 to the low for like literally 3 years before it accelerated, all right. uh, you know and if you go back here to the JetBlue, did the same. You can see it was sideways in this range here, all right, before taking off. If you take a look at the delta, this is the 2009 low. You can see how it stayed in the range for a few years before taking off, right? So again, you cannot say that how quickly they're going to react now from these areas. And like I said, some of them can even make a new low. That's not completely out of the question. But we do think that it is a good long-term investment, obviously. But everybody will have to do their own money and risk management and make sure that this is, it will suit them, and they do agree with it. But like I said, according to our analysis, we do think that this is a good long-term opportunity. And even when another short-term low cannot be ruled out based on the individual structure that I showed you. So getting back to your question from earlier, AJ, that I mean, like I said, that the more up-to-date fund managers, I know that they actually look at both fundamentals and technicals. So they some of them, they must be using different technical analysis techniques. We have been approached by some fund managers, and we keep getting approached, who would want us to provide the technical side of the analysis, and then they combine it with their fundamental analysis to do that. From time to time we would do it as well, but this will definitely help. I mean, I don't see any downside to it. Like I said, as I mentioned earlier, that we provide the forecast, and then our clients, they will combine our analysis with their systems, or their techniques, to make trading decisions. And then when they see a confluence, then obviously they can get a higher conviction in the trade. So definitely it will help, but obviously I cannot say why Mr. Buffett didn't look at it, or why he doesn't, or whether he does or not. Obviously I cannot comment on that because I don't have all the facts. All right, so and okay, so another reason that I've been told, that Eric is just brought to my attention, that Mr. Buffett was saying that even though the airlines will trade higher again, they might take a while before they recover. So he could be right, because like I said, we saw that happening here last time, and perhaps maybe he didn't want his funds to be stuck for a few years before the rally took place. Do you guys understand what I mean? Okay, so so maybe he didn't want his, he thought he could make better use of those, he could invest those funds in a better place, and get the returns for the next few years, maybe invest them in the tech sector or wherever, which is like expected to rally, etc., and not have them, being negative for the next few years before they finally recovered. So maybe that's why he cut the loss to put the rest of the funds in some other sector. So that could be a reason. All right. But obviously, like I said, I cannot, fully comment on why exactly he did it. But this could be one possible reason, that he thought, and he said that they can take a while before they recover, like we saw them going sideways. But yeah, so a new low can happen still. Like I said, they're still going to stay bullish, but maybe, he said it can take a while, like they did back here before recovering, and perhaps that's why he did that. So obviously, I mean, he's like, obviously a very savvy, investor, and he must have his reasons. And it's not like if you cut losses or took loss in one trade, does not mean that is a bad trade now. If he's out of it, it simply could mean that he thought he could make better use of those same funds in some other sector at this moment in time, even after taking a loss in this one, and he could always reinvest in this. Like I said, he's a very savvy investor. Obviously, we don't use fundamentals, but looking at his track record, obviously, it is pretty obvious. All right. Okay, guys. So, what about stocks like Hertz, Diana? I heard that they have filed for bankruptcy, and I have said this before as well. There are hundreds, and I don't know how many stocks in the transportation sector, and we know that some of them will go bankrupt, but we do not think that the entire sector will go bankrupt. One of these companies that we're looking at today, they might file for bankruptcy. I don't know whether they will or not, but we do not think that every single one of these or the entire sector is going to file for bankruptcy. So yes, some companies will go bust, but obviously that's not the point of today's discussion. The idea is that overall the sector should remain supported because we do not expect that every company is going to go bust. All right. So okay. So now, if I got some questions here, let me take a look at those quickly. So in summary, you wait for pullback in all airlines. No, I mean, I'm not, as I said, I'm not providing the trade setups here. I'm talking about the overall the future of the transportation and the airline sector. For us, they have already done the major part of the pullback. They already reached the blue boxes and they're bouncing. For example, the Dow Transportation Index is bouncing from here. American Airlines is bouncing from this blue box. So now the pullback that you're referring to is basically like short-term pullback to correct the cycle from May lows. So yes, we're calling that pullback, but it can rally from here tomorrow and nothing changes. Okay, because overall we have already seen three wave back to the extreme area. So I haven't said anything like whether to wait for the pullback or not. Obviously, I'm just showing you the short-term view from the low that it makes sense that we get a pullback before we turn higher again. But that's not the summary of what we're talking about. The summary is that we have seen the big three wave back and they are bullish. Even when a new short-term low cannot be ruled out, they can stay sideways for a while, but they are bullish and it is a good long-term investment from what we can see. All right. Okay, there was another question here. Okay, would you recommend to trade the transportation index or other particular airline stocks, and any chance to have a quick look and your view on the Airbus chart and how the count could look like? Okay, so transportation index was a good buy over here according to our system, but obviously it has now ended the cycle, reached the 50 back, and again we will be calling higher against this level. All right, of course you'll have to look at the internals here and form your strategy. But this was the buying area in the transportation index, just like this was the buying area in the American Airlines. This was the buying area here in the Southwest, and this was the buying area here in the JetBlue, and so on. Okay, so those buying areas have been hit already, and this is we are looking at it as a whole. But if we do make, let's say, new lows or go close to the lows, I believe that this is me, this is not a trade recommendation, all right, because I cannot give any recommendations to anyone. But for, I mean, me personally, if I wasn't in the trade and if I were to buy it, then I think that some of these instruments are still offering good long-term opportunities. Of course, you cannot be trading with a very tight stop, let's say with the $2 stop. Then obviously you have to do it against the zero line, or just hold it for the long term. So this is a good long-term investment. We're not talking about like a 1 hour or an intraday trade here, but these are definitely good long-term investments. All right. Okay, now the next question. Okay, about Airbus, I doubt I'll be able to look at that, Johannes. The thing is, I would love to take all the questions, but there are hundreds of stocks in the transportation sector. And if I look at one, I've had a lot of requests, then I will have to take a look at all of them. And if not, then I would be unfair to the others. So that's the reason why, we wouldn't be able to look at the stocks which are not really covered in this webinar. I do apologize for that. I would love to, but like I said, there are hundreds of stocks, and if I did that with one, then I'll have to look at all of them. All right, okay. So how do we correlate it to the Boeing chart? I know you don't want to cover it. It would be great to get your experience perspective. Thank you. Maybe he's expecting a new low. Okay, sorry, that was the next part. Okay, so just give me one moment. I'll come to that. Yes, there is room for a pullback against these lows because when you look at the overall perspective, this looks like one swing. So ideally, there is room for a bounce and another low here in these all these stocks that we're looking at. There is one question here that I'm missing. How do you see the blue box in the Delta or Carnival? Okay, the Delta here, this is basically when you are looking at a flat correction. Okay, you obviously do not get a clear blue box. Okay, so this blue box that you highlighted here is simply to show the 61A to the 76.4% retracement area. This blue box is not based on extensions, it is based on retracements, and it is not the same as this blue box in the jet blue or this blue box in the transportation index, which is based on the extensions here, and that's the one that we like to trade, which is the clear one, or the the southwest here. This is also based on the extensions here and so on. So this one is based on the retracements just to highlight where you are, and it's not really based on extension. And that is why I said earlier that this one is the least clear structure to trade, because even if it can make another low, unless you're trading against the zero line. So it is good for the long-term investment, but not for trading, because structure wise it's a flat and it's not the same as an ABC or a WXY, for example, you got here in the transportation index, JetBlue, Southwest, American Airlines, and so on. So that is different. So it's good for a long-term investment, but not for a mid-term trade because of the structure that you have. Okay. All right. So I think we got another question here. Yes, if the airlines are gonna be supported, then yes, of course. The plane manufacturers should also be supported. I got a like questions about Airbus, Boeing, etc., etc. Okay, but the thing is, as it's like Mr. Buffett said that the reason why he closed his positions, that he thought it could take a while, so airline industry could take some time to fully revive and then of course go back above the previous levels, because obviously every year the number of travelers does increase as the population increases and the business grows and etc etc, and tourism grows at uh, so uh, so the thing is, uh, it needs to get back above the previous levels for the airlines to be able to procure new planes or replace the existing ones. Obviously, they do have to do the maintenance, but that's my personal opinion. That's from a fundamental perspective, right? But if you take a look here, right? So this is the Boeing chart. Just bear with me. Okay, Andre, I I doubt I will be able to do that. Okay, so Boeing looks like a three-wave decline here. Obviously, it is extended. It has, this could be an extended C wave, or it could be doing a flat from here, because I do not think it's going to do a 5, a B, and a C. I don't think this is going to happen. Okay, so either it finished here as an ABC, or it can do a flat from here, A, B, then it is 1, 2, 3, 4. It can make a marginal new low and then turn higher. What I do not think can happen, in my opinion, is that you make a new low to make 5 waves from the peak, do a B and a C, and then go bust. Okay, unless you're going to go bankrupt. All right, but I see that scenario to be very unlikely. So either it's done in 3 waves, or it can make another low and become a flat from this peak of 2018. And now that I looked at Boeing, I will look at the Airbus as well. If you can provide me with a symbol, e-signal symbol. I don't know whether it was Johannes. I think Johannes, you asked me about it. So if you have the e-signal symbol for it, let me know and I can take a look at that. All right. Uh, so now let me try to finish this. I got some other questions and I'm going to take a look at those. Okay, so as I was saying that the move of the lows looks questionable, it can be counted as 5 in some and 3 in the others. So which means that a new low cannot be ruled out. For example, Delta still can make a new low. Okay, but that doesn't change anything. It should still be ending a flat. All right. Then you have okay, even if American Airlines makes a new low, doesn't change anything. It's still good long-term investment. Still should be same part of the same cycle from here or here. Okay, and same with the JetBlue. That even if it does make a new low, you can make this an ABC, but you would ideally still this low should hold because the rally appears to be an impulse over here. All right. So based on the basis of that, it seems pretty clear that the reaction from the lows it is mixed in these different instruments. I mean, in some you can count them as five, in some it just looks like three. So new low cannot be completely ruled out, but even if it does, I believe that it's still going to be part of the same cycle from here, because you cannot expect that the American now will do another cycle similar to this one here from 2018. So yes, it could still be another cycle within this cycle, even though it looks a bit big for a wave four, but it's a still good long-term investment in my opinion. And the conclusion is that the most likely path for the future, we believe that they should remain supported. That's what we were talking about for the last few minutes, because even though we believe that some companies can go bankrupt, okay, like somebody was asking about Hertz earlier, okay, but we believe that the entire sector will not. And even when you have room to do the double correction in the likes of the transportation index, okay, it can go here, nothing happens, it has plenty of room, it can do this. All right. uh, you have room even in the Southwest Airlines to do the double correction here. If it doesn't make a new low from current levels, it can go here and still do this. But you do not have enough room to do the double correction, like a big double correction lower in the JetBlue, for example. You can't do the double from here, or it goes negative. Or even from here or here, you can't do a double or a triple three from here, else it goes negative. And same with the American Airlines. And that's the reason why we believe that the entire sector as a whole should remain supported. All right. Okay. So I'm sorry, Johannes, what is that number that you shared? Is it the symbol for that stock? It shouldn't be that symbol. I can try air. Yeah, this is something else. Or is this Airbus? This, it says AAR Corporation. I don't know what that is. Does anybody know if this is the chart of Airbus? Does it look like it? Okay, so it's not. That means that's not the correct symbol. Okay, and could I share a chart of S&P since 2006? We have this chart of S&P here showing the cycles. Of course, I cannot show the label chart. That's available inside members area. If you're not a member, we do offer a free 14-day trial. And of course, if you haven't tried this before, you can go to the site here, simply click here, and you can start your free 14-day trial in no time. And S&P is covered in group 1, so you just select this and you can sign up, and you should be able to see the charts of S&P and all other instruments within um, the group 1. All right. Now, okay, so all right, guys, I'm taking some requests now. All right, just bear with me. Okay, this is an invalid symbol, Johannes. I'm sorry about that. It might be their symbol, but apparently this is not the correct symbol for e-signal. So if you could get me that, I can look at it. I have a request. Okay, is it the symbol for the Airbus? I'm just gonna look at a few of them. Oh yes, you found the correct one. That's good. It does say Airbus SE. I don't know what that means, but yes, it does say Airbus. Okay, I will look at Air Canada. I will look at Ford. That's what I promised. And also Boeing, we have talked about it. FTSE obviously is not part of the today's agenda. And somebody had a request about one more that I can look at. But like I said, we will not be looking at any more after that. It was about IAG.LSE. I don't know what that is. Kareem asked me about it. I'm going to check what it is. It's an invalid symbol, so it's not covered in e-signal, but let's try this one. Yes, that's I got that. Thank you, AJ. Johannes already shared that. And if Okay, Kareem, so if you can find the e-signal, I don't think that I will have access to British Airways because I do not believe that we have access to the individual stocks in the FTSE index as we don't cover them. So I do not think that I will be able to get the data for that over here. I see. Okay, don't worry. Let me take a look at this one first. And so this one is the same. This one has room to do the double correction lower. If you take a look here, go to the weekly chart. And I believe that the cycle has ended. Okay, so now we keep going lower. Okay, so this cycle has ended here, wherever from here, clearly. And it looks pretty similar to the airlines, but obviously in this one, yeah, I think it could be a flat because this decline is definitely impulsive. Okay, so yes, it itself, this one has room to do this, like the Southwest, like the others, like the transportation index, okay, and the few others, right? This one can do this, but like I said, for example, the American Airlines and then, JetBlue, Carnival, they don't really have room to do the double correction lower. So this one, when the decline looks impulsive, it could be a flat from here, all right? Or from here, but then this looks like 5 swings. So this could be an ABC and it could be done here. Obviously, this cycle has definitely ended. If we break this low, that could mean a lot more downside here, okay? But the equal legs can then break the low, so I doubt that's going to happen. But the equal legs from here is in the negative territory. Right, okay. So regardless, I think that this cycle has ended and now it has scope to continue higher as far as this low is holding. Obviously, if this low breaks, then equal legs is below the low, but the 0.618 extension could then be targeted, which comes at 32.21, and the 0.764 extension here. I'm not saying it will break. It should ideally do something like this. In case it broke the low, you gotta watch this area next. All right, okay, so IAG. Okay, this is IM Gold. Definitely doesn't look like British Airways. So let me see what we have here. There was a request, another one for Ford, I think. Covered Boeing already. All right, so Ford, I think it has corrected a grand super cycle already. This one here. And then this rally looks impulsive. And it is bouncing from the equal legs area here. Yeah, it looks quite similar to GM, but this cycle ended. This is definitely a grand super cycle. All right, and then you can make it, either like an A, B, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, something like that. But clearly, this cycle has also ended from 1999. So as far as this low is holding, it should be, bullish, because obviously a break of this low means it's going to go bankrupt. So as far as this low is in place, it should be extending higher, and it is currently bouncing from. Exactly. So a lot of big companies here you see, like in the transportation sector, they are quite close to the zero line, and of course based on the structure as well, like I showed you. Okay, that means that they should be supported and they should be bullish overall, and it's a good long-term investment. Obviously, which one is going to rally more than the others, okay, that remains to be seen, but overall we do believe that the transportation sector is ready for a huge rally soon. Okay, of course, can it take a few years to materialize? Can they get sideways for a few years? Of course, nobody can say whether that's going to happen or not. But overall, I think that this one is also should remain supported. I see three-wave back from here, ending in the extreme area, and it should be getting close to a rally pretty soon for stock. Even if it can make another low, doesn't matter. Still should remain bullish against this level, in my opinion. All right. So I don't think that I have missed any questions here. Okay, I know there were a lot of requests, even though I just, earlier my view was not to look at all these stocks. But anyway, we had some time at the end, so I've done it. I didn't want to disappoint anyone. Um, okay, Andre, have you been able to find the symbol for Air Canada? I think that's the one that I'm missing. All right, I think, uh, okay. And somebody asked me about Hertz. I heard they're filing for bankruptcy anyway. And if somebody has a symbol, if they're still trading, I can take a look at that as well. I don't mind. Okay, that's the symbol for Air Canada. Oh, that sounds like a very weird kind of symbol. Oh, yes, but it is correct. Okay, thank you, Diana. Are they still trading? Okay, no problem. I'll take a look at that for you. And that's going to be the last one. If anybody has any other questions about what we talked about in the seminar, not the individual requests, please feel free to ask, because I'll be taking a look at Hertz after this, and then that's going to be the end of the individual requests. Okay. Just okay. All right. Uh, so this is Air Canada. Pretty straight correction here, straight down correction. I think it did a shallow connector here, like the American Airlines. You need to go down to the daily chart in order to spot it. And this one actually looks quite good. I believe this was the connector here in Air Canada. And this could be like an ABCW, X, ABCY, pretty straight down correction. But it has bounced off the equal X, and this one also looks pretty good. It went as low as 6.37 like JetBlue. And now I see a cycle, a connector, and didn't reach equal X. So either it is nesting or it is the three waves, and the first leg up from here can become a diagonal, but it could be a nest, 1, 2, 1. I can do something like this, extend higher, or the first leg from here can take the form of a diagonal. There is no divergence here. You can see how this RSI trend line is broken, confirming that this cycle has ended, in my opinion. So that's why I think it's looking positive for the transportation sector and the airlines industry, in my opinion. Okay, of course, we gotta keep calling extension higher against this low, even though it's just three waves. It can be a nest, or it can be a diagonal in the first leg from here. And this is ABC1, and then it does something like this before making a pullback and higher. So of course, it remains to be seen which way it's gonna be. But clearly, like I said, uh, I believe it should see more upside against this level, because the break of this low would mean that it's gonna go negative. So again, another good long-term investment, just like the ones that we saw in some of the US airlines. Okay, on the TSX, which index is that, Kareem? If you can let me know, let me take a quick look at Hertz here. Okay, you're most welcome, Kareem. And okay, I've heard that they have filed for bankruptcy. I do understand that. But keep in mind that this is obviously, a car rental company. And yes, they do play a role in the transportation sector, but not as big as the airlines industry. Okay, which is why I said earlier that some companies they will fail. Yes, we do know that it's the real world. It will happen. but does not mean that every stock or every company in the transportation sector is going to go under, or the whole transportation index is going to go bust, all right? So this one, obviously, it has broken the low of 2008. Yes. And if we take a look here, it appears to be, this is the connector, and it has, obviously, the equal legs is below zero, and equal legs from here is also below zero. So no wonder they can see what's coming next, and probably that's why they are filing for bankruptcy. I mean, I cannot really comment on that, but yes, I know they are. But technically also, obviously, it has been to 0.28 something already. And as they've already filed for bankruptcy, so obviously you would not want to trade this stock, unless I'm mistaken. I saw the news, unless they have, withdrawn from that. But that's what I saw. So it wouldn't make sense to trade a stock or company which has already filed for bankruptcy. But yes, like I said, in my opinion, at least, it doesn't have, as big an impact on the transportation sector as the airlines. Obviously, which is a huge industry. And any chance it will go up? Technically, I don't see it. Obviously, it has been close to zero. And oh, you mean Hertz has filed for Chapter 11 protection, so which is to protect them from bankruptcy? Okay, all right. So maybe the news that I read, it was a bit exaggerated. Some of those headlines, they can be confusing if you don't read the full story. But anyway, any chance it will go up? To be honest, technically, this is not. It is not in a good sound position to go up. It has already been to 0.40 Diana, and I mean the sequence is incomplete. All right, even from here, because this does look like the connector. So the sequence is definitely incomplete, but obviously doesn't mean that you can go zero. So if it doesn't go bankrupt, I believe there's only one way from here, which is up. But I cannot say whether it will be able to escape bankruptcy or not. So that's why I will not rather not trade a stock like this. Otherwise, of course, it's been pretty close to zero, if you know what I mean. But I mean, if something is already in the media and if they file for protection from something, that means it is possible it can happen, right? So you would rather save your money and put it in some other stock which is not filing for bankruptcy, or is like filing for protection from bankruptcy, if you know what I mean. Yeah, exactly. So that's the reason why I would avoid it at this stage. Okay, so right, I have another question here about how do you know if a stock is nesting and not correcting in real time? How can you track that in real time and know? Okay, so obviously you have to look at a number of things. You need to look at the market correlation. You have to look at the entire market as a whole. I mean, if you look at something like this, if you do not see the previous structure, okay, or if you do not have any clues from the rest of the market, it can be anything. It can be an ABC, or it can be 1 2 1 2. So you wouldn't really know unless you get clues from the rest of the market. But as far as this pivot is holding, let's say the previous move, obviously then you go and take a look at the previous structure. If the previous structure was in 5 waves, then you got a 3-wave pullback, right? And then market started pushing higher. Let's say it broke the highs as well, and it did something like this, right? Now the question is, should you be labeling a nest or an ABC? Is the obvious answer is that you should be labeling a nest. Shane, because the previous move is in 5 waves, you got a 3-wave back, market made new highs, and you have 1 2 1. So far there's no acceleration, but you look at the bigger picture, previous leg is in 5 waves, so you got to push the nest until this pivot gives up, in which case it can either drop and become a flat, or the first leg of C wave or the first leg of wave 3 can become a diagonal. So that's how you take it step by step. But obviously, if the previous move was in 5, you got 3 now after finishing 3 back. You need to push the nest, because that's what makes sense. If this is 5, you need to expect 5 coming after 3 waves back, which of course then other possibilities can happen. And then the rest of the market correlation structure in the other instruments, they can provide you with the clues about whether it should be that or not. All right, is that clear, Shane? Okay, perfect. So you're most welcome, Kareem. Thank you so much for joining. And you also have a nice evening. I'm just trying to make sure. Okay. So apparently it doesn't look like that I have missed any questions. Let's call it the end here. All right. Thank you so much for joining. I hope you guys enjoyed the webinar. And I tried my best to explain the overall idea that even when some instruments like the transportation index, Southwest, and even Airbus, for example, they have room to do the double correction lower. Even Delta, if it bounces here, it can do this. All right, but overall, instruments like the American Airlines, JetBlue, Carnival, they do not really have room to do the double correction lower, and that's why we believe that a rally is coming soon, and the sector as a whole should be supported, and it's a good long-term investment. All right, you're most welcome, Roshan. Thank you so much for joining. Thank you, Diana. I'm glad you enjoyed. Thank you so much, Naveen. Thanks for your feedback. I appreciate that, and thank you for your suggestion as well. And I'm glad you enjoyed. This is Daud, by the way. I'm doing it. I know it says Eric Moreira because that's the account is under his name. You're most welcome, AJ. Thank you so much for joining. And yes, definitely, I appreciate your suggestion. Thank you, Jose, and you're welcome, Naveen. Yes, exactly. So thank you, VS. Thanks, everybody. Thank you so much for joining me. I hope you guys enjoyed. The recording should be ready at our website by early next week, probably by Monday. And of course, I see a lot of members here, so thanks for your time. Thanks for interacting with me, and of course, a lot of new names. So thank you to all of you as well. And of course, if you guys would like to, basically receive our forecasts on a regular basis, feel free to try us. We do offer like a free 14-day trial, and if you're again we do understand that not every technique is for everyone, so you don't have to be like worried that if you take the trial then you will be stuck into buying the membership. So that's not the case. I mean, if you liked what you saw today, you can sign up for a free 14-day trial. And if for whatever reason you can select your group. If for whatever reason you felt that you didn't feel satisfied, or if you felt that this technique wasn't for you, or what we're doing, you couldn't understand that, of course we can try and help you. We do the live sessions. But if you still didn't want to continue, that's okay. You can easily cancel. You send us an email, or you contact us through live chat, and we cancel the trial for you. You do not get charged. But again, if, like I said, if you guys liked it, you can try for free for 14 days. There's no commitment. And if you didn't want to continue, you can cancel on day 13, and you do not get charged. All right. So I would like to thank everybody once again for being with me this evening. So take care of yourself. Have a nice evening, a great weekend, and we will put up the recording as soon as it's been processed, but latest by Monday. So thank you very much, everyone, and take care of yourself.